Hi there and welcome. My name is Jason and the plant that I have to share with you right now is called Aeonium. I believe this is Aeonium arboreum, and then there's also an Aeonium haworthii pinwheel in the center. But yeah, for the most part, Aeonium arboreum, this one right here, it's absolutely gorgeous. These like dark purpley green leaves. This is a really neat succulent. It grows to about 3 to 4 feet tall and about 2 feet wide. And it just puts off all these little rosettes, which is really, really fun. As far as the care, Aeoniums do well in bright shade to part sun, and then also cool sun. So if you're on the coast, you can plant this in full sun. If you're more inland, and this is all here in California, if you're more inland where it gets even, really intense, like hot summers, you don't want to put this in full sun. You'd want to put it in part sun to bright shade, which is really, really neat, for succulents, being that you can grow them in those types of lighting. And Aeoniums are really, really neat because they really fill in with these, it looks like, purpley green flowers, even though they're not flowers, constantly. They're always looking this way. They do eventually bloom, yellow flower spikes. The centers will start to elongate and they'll grow a yellow flower spike. And that can be often in the summer, sometimes late spring. But right now this is just rosettes. And it's pretty awesome. As far as the watering, very low water needs. You can leave these with very little water for a long time, but do make sure that you water them intermittently. And then, as far as the fertilization goes, you want to fertilize this every other month, spring through summer, which is the growth season, with a succulent fertilizer. As far as the soil pH, this is very adaptable, when it comes to the pH of the soil. It can be alkaline, acidic, or neutral. You'll want to use a succulent potting soil when you plant this. So that's already formulated with everything this plant pretty much needs. So just know that. You don't want to plant this in clay soil. There might be some circumstances where it's grown in clay soil, but for the most part, I don't recommend planting this in clay soil. The soil will stay wet for too long when it does get wet, and it can cause root rot for this plant, so please avoid that. As far as the cold hardiness, this is a relatively cold hardy succulent. Cold hardy down to about 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold hardy. I've never had a freeze hurt this ever. It's just always been fine. As far as cuttings, I usually take cuttings in the fall. I kind of take a number of cuttings in late fall, just to have some succulent cuttings inside. So if the freeze was too hard one year, or maybe something weird happened during the winter, I would always have a backup. So that's just a rule of thumb I follow with most of my succulents, even though I don't necessarily need to do it so much with this Aeonium. Aeonium haworthii pinwheel, which is this green one right here, as you can see, is pretty cool. I just feel like this is one of my almost indestructible. This is hardy down to about 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really cold hardy. This is a pretty tough succulent. Same care as you would for the Aeonium arboreum. So do keep that in mind. But yeah, these are overall just really fun plants to have. Super simple. You don't need to do much for them, and they just reward you with these gorgeous, they're just gorgeous. Propagating Aeonium is a little bit different than propagating Echeveria. So most Echeveria, you propagate, you snap off the little rosettes and then you just put them in some soil, dry soil. You can use rooting hormone. That always helps speed up the process and raise the probability of the succulent taking, but succulents are pretty easy. They're pretty much going to root as long as you don't overwater them. So remember, whenever you take a succulent cutting, especially if it's Echeveria, which are the little rosettes, they don't have roots yet, so you don't want to overwater the soil. So just dry soil, slightly damp, and then just leave the cutting there till it roots. And once it's rooted, then you can start watering it, a tiny bit, because succulents don't really need a lot of water. As far as Aeoniums, I've noticed they root really, better in water, which is weird. A cup of water for Aeoniums. I don't know why it is. I've had a couple circumstances where I use the rooting hormone and perlite on different Aeoniums, and a lot of them took, but then other ones don't, which is weird. But usually the water cuttings for Aeoniums seem to always take. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the way they like to be propagated. And that's more Aeonium arboreum. When it comes to Aeonium pinwheel, I mean, you literally can just put this like green one, you can literally just put that in the ground and it'll eventually root. It's like really just a prolific, hardy, tough as nails succulent. This gets a couple, like 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. And that's the Aeonium haworthii pinwheel. So yeah, if you have any questions about these, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And once again, this is Aeonium arboreum, and this is Aeonium haworthii variety pinwheel. And my name is Jason. Thanks so much for hanging out.